Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Toyless Titles. My name is Justin Stevens. We're back at you with another episode of Toyless Titles, the flagship show on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. So tonight, if you might notice, John is out of town this week, and so I've entered into his bedroom and I've decided to, or his office, I should say, and I've decided to record from his studio. So I got to say, it does look a lot nicer on me, but we are going to miss you there, Coach. I forgot to change the colors on here, so you still see Rivals colors down there, but we'll get to Rival in just a minute. But first, I want to take a little bit of time here to make sure that we're hitting up that toiletstitles.com. It's our new website. It's not a new website yet, but we continue to put the NFL draft stuff on there. Our dynasty rankings are on there. IDP rankings. We're going to have redraft rankings up probably in the next month or two. And then obviously signups for Frankenstank, which is a very frequent thing that we talk about. We will not be hitting Frankenstank tonight at all. We got enough to talk about. I'm going to start off with our guests. I'm going to start down below me because the guy looks like he has fireworks behind him. He looks very festive, like he's ready to go. He's ready to talk about something. He's got a cowboy shirt on. So without Coach here, we still had to have the representation. So that man is Wicked, guys. If you are in the Gilded, you've seen Wicked a lot lately. So Wicked, tell us a little bit about what's going on in because honestly, on our end, me and John, the messages we get that are away from all those other messages, on top of the messages you're sending to everyone else, it's like you have like 7 pans on the stove and you're just constantly cooking this huge dinner up. So I'm reluctant to ask you, but what do you have going on right now?
Yeah, man, how much time you got? Because I'm working on a whole lot of things. Right now, basically what we're kind of focusing on, though, is getting prepped and ready for some of these leagues that we're going to be putting on for the fantasy football season. You can see behind me here, one of the ones that we're really trying to start pushing is the Tournament of Champions that I cooked up for you guys. It's going to be 384 teams with a $4,000 first prize. It's going to be a little bit different than what most people are used to in a redraft league. You know, regular season's only weeks 1 through 12. And then weeks 13 through 17, there's going to be 32 qualifying teams that compete for that $4,000 first prize. So I'm really excited about that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then, we're just working on making sure that we're bringing the most value that we can to all of our Patreon subscribers and our title tribe. We're putting out these shows every week for everybody. We got the rankings going on. We're working on a website revamp to make it sleeker and more user-friendly. And I'm kind of dabbling with some computer coding to build the title tribe a trade analyzer. So that's been a lot of fun and a nice little adventure for me. So hopefully that's something that'll pan out for us.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me earlier in the chat with John, and I immediately got a headache just from trying to follow what you were trying to say. So, and then you call it fun. So,
yeah,
one man's trash, right? That's
right.
How the saying goes. But and after you're done filling some of those leagues for the Tournament of Champions, I might need your help filling that 32-man league because I don't think I have as many friends as you do. But before I introduce you, Genesis, I don't know if I should call you Dennis anymore, but
it is my new name.
But before I do that, though, I went and checked the chats. Whenever we have a donation, I always make sure to throw it up here. Pete, we love you, buddy. Thanks again for your constant support. And as I'm talking about that, what he's doing there with that little 99-cent donation there, something new that we started just a few months ago. But down by the chat box, the comment box, there's a little dollar. It looks like a tiny little dollar bill there. You can click on that. You can send a donation. But before you do that, hold up. Don't do it yet. Before you do that, we are giving away a Bijan Robinson autographed jersey. That Bijan Robinson autographed jersey I was going to talk about later, but Pete reminded me now, so I'm going to do it now. It's a Patreon giveaway. If you are a Patreon at the MVP level, you do get 1 entry. If you're a Patreon at the Hall of Fame level, you get 2 entries. Or you can donate for extra entries. So the extra entries are $5, $10, $10, and $20. Am I right, Wicked?
Yeah. So $5 gets you 1 entry, $10 gets you 5, and then $20 gets you 10.
Right on. All right, so that's for the extra entries for the Bijan Robinson autograph. Pete, man, you've got so many autograph jerseys and helmets. We saw a helmet on Twitter today that you posted from your man DJ Moore, and I think myself and Pete are the only two that are huge DJ Moore fans like that. But anyway, enough of that. We got some other guys in the chat, so we appreciate you, Duarte, Jerry, Dynasty Dogs, Dina. I don't know if this is actually Dina or if you confiscated her phone. Either way, Dina is the wife of this man right here. This is David Genesis, guys. So you guys have seen him all over our platform on YouTube on a regular basis. He does the card breaks. I got a Twitter message a couple days ago that said, "Hey, are you the guy that does the card breaks on Toilets of Titles?" And I was like, "Nope. Here's his Twitter handle." So hopefully you got that message. But how's it going tonight, my friend?
Hey, not too bad. Just ready to talk some football as always. We got I don't know if you've mentioned Gilded yet, but we have a Gilded chat, and we are currently doing every week. We're trying to get in a 32 team mock draft for the community mock to draft for your favorite NFL team. It's been a ton of fun so far. We have trades, we have all sorts of stuff. It's been great. We're doing a 3-round one right now.
Yeah, third round, and I think I'm going to be up soon. So I just found out I got crap to do after the show too. So bear with me. I might send you a request list again. All right. So we're talking fantasy football. We're talking, well, I guess fantasy football relative free agent signings. This past week has been full of free agent signings and even some trades in the NFL. So we're going to be talking about all those, not all of them, but as many as we can get in the next probably 30 minutes or so. But I want to start off with the quarterbacks because there wasn't a whole lot of top name guys at the quarterback position. We know about the before I get into the free agencies, there was a couple of trades. Kenny Pickett's going to be a backup for Philadelphia. Woohoo. But we've got Russell Wilson, who was traded to Pittsburgh. And then they turn around and traded to get, or no, they signed for Russell Wilson and then traded to get Justin Fields. So now they have two quarterbacks. It's like Pittsburgh decided that they're going to start playing super flex or something. I don't know what's going on out there, but Wicked, we'll start with you, man. I don't know if you want me to call you Wicked or Dylan. It's just easier for me.
Either's fine. Wicked's probably easier, so I can stay consistent across all platforms. But
there you go. All right, Wicked. So what do you think about the signing and the trade here? Like, do we have a clear-cut number one just because they said he's going to start? Do you think we're going to see a changing of the guard at some point in the season? I don't know, man.
So the Steelers got Wilson for next to nothing because the Broncos are paying all of his salary. And so that doesn't afford him any job security, regardless of what they may have promised him during contract negotiations. If a guaranteed starter isn't written into your contract, then you're not the guaranteed starter. And I think we've seen over the past couple of years that Wilson has declined. I don't expect that to change. And I just, with them trading for Fields pretty quickly after signing him, I know they got Fields for a steal, but with them making that move right after signing Russell, it doesn't show a lot of faith that they want him around very long. And so I think, Russell's going to be penciled in as the starter, but it's going to be his job to lose. And if Fields comes in to Steelers camp and impresses, and Russell comes out of the gate struggling when the season kicks off, I would not be surprised to see them, give Fields a shot at that starting job by, mid-year.
Yeah, and I think in the Gilded chat, I had put that I think it's going to be right around week 8 for me. At least that's what I put in a poll. But I wanted to save you for the last on this one, David, because obviously, I mean, look behind the guy. He's geared up. He's ready to go. That's not a Cincinnati Bengals shirt. That's the Bearcats. And Dina's watching, who's a fan of the Bengals. So you need to let her have it here. How is this going to help propel the Steelers to win this division this year?
Well, first off, both the Ravens and the Bengals hurt themselves losing coordinators and coaches all over the place. A lot of people don't look at that when they're looking at teams. They look at the player moves. The Ravens lost 3 defensive coordinators / coaches to other jobs. They're going to be different. But yeah, the Steelers, I think that's a perfect situation for both quarterbacks. Russell Wilson knows, okay, they brought in Justin Fields. I'm a 1-year guy. Cool. Now he can go out and he can ball out and get himself a contract somewhere else. Or, maybe the Steelers extend him. I don't know why they would with Justin Fields in the building. He's a younger aspect, younger project. But if Justin Fields learns for a year behind him, which is exactly what Kenny Pickett would have done, is learn for a year, but he didn't want to actually have a quarterback competition, I guess. So as soon as there was competition, he was like, I'm going to leave now and back up somewhere else where I have no chance of starting.
Yeah, worse situation.
Yeah, that was confusing to me. I get it that you didn't want the competition, or you wanted a competition you thought you could win, but you didn't go to somewhere where you thought you could win.
Right.
Unless Jason Kelsey isn't there and Hurts gets hurt doing the tush push, that's that's your only shot there. But I like the move. I like the Steelers making moves. I was in the offseason or right after the season. I said a bunch of times, and I've said it for a few years, the Steelers, as Steelers fans, we are used to greatness, and we have been mediocre for the last several years. We do win enough games to not be able to get a Joe Burrow or any other high caliber quarterback in the draft. So this is how we got to do it.
Right on. I love it. I'm going to talk about Jacoby Brissett a little bit. You guys don't have to, but as a Colts fan, I watched a lot of Jacoby Brissett back in the day. Now he's going to be a Patriot. Obviously, I hate the fact that he's going to be a Patriot, but I mean, it's Jacoby Brissett. It's not like we're talking Peyton Manning here. But with Jacoby Brissett, he has an innate ability to win football games. And a lot of people don't realize it because the rest of that team, your fantasy team is just tanked. Like aside from maybe Stevenson and another running back that we're going to be talking about here shortly, there's a really good chance that the rest of your fantasy team is completely tanked. The upside to that is that it was the Patriots. And for the last couple of years, the rest of that offense for fantasy purposes was tanked anyway. But as a Patriots fan, if you are one, you've gotten a quarterback now that knows how to manage a football game. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to be dropping 60-yard bombs to win the game by 30, but he's going to win all of the close football games. That's just what Jacoby Brissett does. He's an amazing game manager. I love the guy. I was a huge fan of him even before he came to the Colts, just because of his grit. So congratulations to the Patriots on that. I'm assuming you guys don't really care to talk about him. You also probably don't want to talk about Gardner Minshew, who's going to Las Vegas to compete with Aiden O'Connell for the starting spot.
I think he's going to win that job.
Oh, really? You already talked about Gardner?
I think Minshew. We don't need to spend a lot of time, but I think he's going to win that job.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think Aiden's got enough in the tank, and Minshew's not the greatest quarterback we've ever seen, but he's got a lot of starts under his belt, and he knows how to run an offense.
Yeah, I was actually glad to see Minshew go as a Colts fan, and not because I don't like the guy, but because he's good enough to keep you from getting a good draft pick, but bad enough to not win you a playoff game.
Right.
Like he's not that guy. He's going to keep us in mediocrity, and I'm not confident that AR is going to stay super healthy. May as well talk about Joe Flacco being signed to the Colts as well as a backup to AR. He's going to see playing time, guys. That shoulder injury scares the bejesus out of me. All right. So 4 shoulder injuries to the same shoulder, same injury. And every single time it's escalated to be worse and worse every time, twice back in high school. So like it's a constant thing with him. It's going to be there. Even if he learns how to slide, you can't take the competitiveness out of a quarterback. It's going to happen. So I mean, the Colts are good at signing old has-been quarterbacks. At least this one had a good season last year. So who knows? But do you want to talk about any of those quarterbacks, Genesis?
Just Jacoby Brissett is an interesting one for me because we've seen him be a starting caliber player, and it kind of puts it in the air of maybe the Patriots play chicken in the draft. I mean, they could now take Marvin Harrison and drop back to the second round and pick up Bo Nix. Now, that's the reason I say that's playing chicken is these quarterbacks are getting higher and higher in these mock drafts as we've seen as more teams become quarterback needy. So it would definitely be playing chicken, but they could bring in Bo Nix or Michael Penix in the second round, even sit him for a year behind Brissett and have a starting, all-star wide receiver for their next quarterback already in the wings.
Yeah, and then once that happens, you've still got Brissett as a solid backup. And Brissett, for what it's worth, came from New England originally, so they already know him. He knows the area. And the Colts are good at getting backup quarterbacks. As a matter of fact, we've had some for starters for the last 2 or 3 years. So,
he also played for their new offensive coordinator who came from Cleveland, I believe.
Wow, there you go. See, I didn't even know that. Right on. All right. So the next big one that we definitely need to talk about is the big one, in my opinion, when it comes to free agencies, and that's Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. That pushes Taylor Heineke, another one of those gritty quarterbacks that I like to watch. Maybe not so much one that wins a lot of games, but I love to watch. What's that?
He tries hard.
He does. He's got the effort. He gets the A for effort for sure. But now he's going to be backing up Kirk Cousins, assuming Cousins is back from his injury issues and concerns, which I'm assuming all of that is going to be behind him by then. But yeah. So what do you guys think about Kirk Cousins to Atlanta? What does it do to that offense? I'll start with you this time, David.
I mean, it obviously boosts the value of all of the offensive weapons that weren't used properly, or maybe they were used properly and the quarterbacks were just that bad in Atlanta. I'm not convinced it pushes them to the top of that division yet. Kirk Cousins has been that guy. He's great. He puts up all these great stats. He gets paid way more than he should considering the success he's had, but he doesn't win playoffs. He barely gets to the playoffs. And until I see that, I'm just not, especially that 36 coming off an Achilles injury, I don't believe it yet. We'll see if the weapons, can carry him, if they can keep him upright, and if the defense can improve in the draft, maybe. But I'm just not convinced yet.
And we'll see if he's on that Aaron Rodgers recovery path where he should be back by kickoff of week 1. That's insane. Yeah. What about you, Wicked? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, Kirk Cousins' agent deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Oh my gosh, has he gotten Kirk paid so many times for no reason? Like, that guy is incredible, and everybody should be hiring him. But I think that this is a great situation for Kirk to walk into. They have a ton of weapons. They've got a good offensive line. I think their defense is good enough. And that division is so soft and wide open to be taken by somebody. And I'm pretty confident that the Falcons will take that division as long as Kirk doesn't have any lingering bad effects from that injury that he sustained last year. From a fantasy perspective, I'm thrilled because for the first time, Drake London and Kyle Pitts have a real quarterback throwing them the ball. Because we can dump on Kirk Cousins' primetime performances all we want, but he knows how to keep our fantasy receivers relevant. So I'm excited for that for sure.
And Bijan's about to blow up, so that jersey that you could win in the Patreon giveaway month is that value is going to blow up after this season. That agent, by the way, is Mike McCartney, and Mike McCartney could probably get Danny DeVito's nephew 4 years for $30 million, right?
he might be able to get me a contract somewhere. He's that good.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't understate yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Listen, I called people and told them I needed to get on the horn when Pickett got traded to Philadelphia before they got Fields. I was like, "There's a backup job in Pittsburgh waiting for me."
Yeah.
Let's see. So I guess maybe you've got the re-signing of Baker Mayfield, so he stays put there. Nothing really changes there until we get
to him. Good for him to get that payday.
Yeah, definitely well deserved. Yeah. You talk about gritty guys, right? Let's see. Sam Howell. Sam Howell, I think, is probably Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, we'll talk about the Sams here. Sam Darnold is going to Minnesota for now, unless they draft somebody. It looks like he'll be the starter with Mullins backing him up. And then Sam Howell going to Seattle to potentially fight with Geno for the starting spot. And I say that because obviously it's Geno's job. You would think they're bringing in Howell as a backup. I kind of like Sam Howell. I kind of like the cut of his jib, which is kind of a recent thing that coach has said recently. So I'm in his room right now, so it just makes sense. I'll use his phrase there. But between Sam Howell and Sam Darnold, Wicked, do you think either of them bring us any fantasy value?
I mean, Darnold will start if they don't draft somebody. So, like in a super flex league, a starting quarterback is a starting quarterback. They have value no matter what.
Right.
I am not certain that Minnesota is not going to move up to take a quarterback, though. With the way that they've positioned themselves now with 2 first-round picks, I think they're in prime territory to trade up, and they've got now the ammunition to do so. And so until the draft is over, I'm not going to be sold on Sam Darnold. From a fantasy perspective, he's a decent person to go buy right now, just in case, and kind of stash. You can still get him pretty cheap because he's Sam Darnold. But if we get through the draft and the Vikings don't grab a guy that's going to obviously take that spot, then he's a starting quarterback, and it is what it is. Sam Howell, I think, is a much more interesting scenario because I think it's a little similar to the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields situation.
Right.
Geno might have a little bit more security because he's got goodwill built up with the Seahawks, but also we've got new coaches in there now. So how much of that goodwill transferred over, we'll be curious. Geno's been fine the past couple of years, but he's getting older, and he's certainly not the person you want to plant your flag on long term as a franchise. Sam Howell started all 17 games for the Commanders last year, and he certainly had his struggles. He threw a lot of interceptions, but I think he showed that he can perform, and he can be a quarterback that, with a little development, you can build around, especially if you've got a good team around him, because the Commanders top to bottom were a dumpster fire last year, and they knew it. And that's why they started shipping out all their assets before the trade deadline. So I think Sam Howell likely does not start this year unless Geno just totally crashes and burns for some reason. But I think that's good for him. I think a year to sit and learn and develop and not have the pressure of being a starting quarterback and just focus on his technique and getting better will serve him well. And then I think, maybe a year, 2, maybe at the most, you could see him kind of taking over that role, similar to what the Packers did with Love, sitting him for a few years, and then he comes in and he's more ready for the moment. While also having a full season of starts under his belt to kind of know what, an NFL game is like. So for fantasy, I think he's somebody that I'd like to grab and stash because he's going to be dirt cheap, and because he's not a starting quarterback currently. But he's somebody that you can hold on to for a year or 2 for basically no cost, just, takes up a roster spot. And if he ends up taking over that starting job for Seattle, he could be in a pretty good situation.
Outstanding. Yep, I like it. That's pretty much what I was going to say, so I can't really add to that. David, do you want to tell him he's wrong?
I'm on the opposite side of both, actually. I think
here we go.
You can keep slinging Sammy Howell upright. I think he takes the starting job from Geno.
Okay.
He was leading the NFL at one point in yards this year when he was on his back most of the year with the wide receivers up in Washington. Now you come down and get DK Metcalf, Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and an offensive line that can actually defend him, and a running game behind him. I think Sling and Sammy can take that job. And then for Sam Darnold, I believe that they're going to move up in the draft as well. I think that, but I'm not sure they have the I don't know. I don't want to say firepower to get to the top 3. They don't have the draft stock quite yet to get into the top 3 if those top 3 want quarterbacks. And I'm not sure the 4th quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, is NFL ready. And I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm still not positive that he's at that spot. But how are we going to sleep on Darnold? He was the number 3 overall pick. He was great in college. He started out with the Jets, who nobody has made good, no matter who was behind quarterback lately. Then he went to Carolina, who were a dumpster fire, and he took the job from Baker Mayfield, who's now went to a team that actually had assets and was good. And now here he is on a team with assets, unless they trade Justin Jefferson. I'm not sure I believe any of that malarkey, but
no way.
I think he finally is on a team with decent weapons. Maybe we see Sam Darnold live up to his draft prospect.
I still haven't gotten my purple Justin Jefferson jersey yet, so I want him to stay there for a little bit longer, just to make it worthwhile, so I can wear it on Sundays. But if he does happen to get traded, I secretly kind of really hope that it's the Bengals. I would love to see Jamar on one side and JJ on the other. Like,
That wouldn't be fair, man.
I don't want to see that as a Steelers
Burrow
fan.
could take another year off. Browning would do just fine. All right. Let's see. So the other quarterbacks, we've got Tyrod Taylor going to back up Aaron Rodgers. We've got Mac Jones is going to back up T-Law in Jacksonville. So that one was kind of interesting-ish. Drew Lock is going to back up Daniel Jones, or maybe not back him up. It probably will because of the contract that Daniel Jones has, but regardless, don't think that one really matters a whole lot. We're all kind of rooting for DeVito anyway. And then Jimmy G is going to back up Stafford for maybe a year or two, but now Jimmy's been a backup for so long that he's kind of getting up there in age too. So even if Stafford retires after another year or two, then you got Jimmy G for a couple years maybe. So I can see them making another move for a young quarterback pretty soon as well. Unless you guys want to touch up on any of those backup quarterbacks, I can move on to the running backs. All right, so before we get on to the running backs, Dynasty Dogs is in the chat. Those running backs got paid. He says that this shows exactly what the NFL thinks about the rookie NFL or the rookie running back class. So it's a fair point. This Dynasty Dogs guy, he knows what he's talking about.
I semi-agree and I semi-disagree. I think that, first off, this was a historic amount of starting caliber running backs on the market. Normally, this many running backs aren't out there. Secondly, all of a sudden, all the teams had 13 million more than they expected to have in free agency and cap space. They went and they signed themselves a little splash, more than what they probably would have if they hadn't had that cap space. I doubt any of these guys get that amount of money or even get signed for some of them without that cap bump.
Yeah, outside of those top two rookie running backs, though, do you see any of them actually starting or getting much playing time in their rookie year?
Probably not this year. No.
Yeah. So it's kind of a little bit of a mixture of both, like you said. Kind of agree and disagree.
I agree and disagree because I'm not high on this draft class either. I could see maybe 2 in the second round, but beyond that, there's no first round running backs this year.
Thanks for the comment, Kevin. Nope, you're shaking your head.
No first round running backs. I was agreeing.
Oh, gotcha. All right. So the running backs, the cream of the crop, number one guy, he goes, he leaves. He finally gets to leave from the New York Giants. So Wicked, you as a Cowboys fan, you finally get to see Saquon leave as a New York Giant just to go to another divisional rival in Philadelphia.
With a better offensive line.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Why don't you tell us how you feel about that?
I feel awesome about it. The only thing that gives me hope is that he will continue to spend most of his seasons on the IR list.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
But fair. I mean, what a great move for him because he's an amazing running back. He's had health problems, obviously, but he's incredibly talented, and he's going to be behind one of the best offensive lines in football. And I don't see any way he's not going to be successful.
Yeah, and he has quads that are as big or around as Terry Bradshaw. So, yeah. So, I don't know. Not really much to add to that one. I think he's going to potentially be maybe a top 3 running back for fantasy purposes for redraft anyway.
He stays healthy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's always the key there. Who's going to take that risk, right? So maybe at the back end of the first round, you might get lucky because some guys will pass up on them on a risky move, and then you got that opportunity to double tap running back on the way back. Again, one quarterback redraft. That's the strategy. Double tap those quarterbacks early and often. So, let's see. Aaron Jones to Minnesota. That was
a shocker.
Kind of a surprise move there. So, David, tell me, how long did it take to pick your jaw up off the ground for that one?
Quite a while. I didn't know what was going to happen over there. Quite honestly, I thought they were losing AJ Dillon. It was the whole running back landscape this month. I literally had to Google and make a sheet because it was changing so often. Like I was trying to keep my brother who doesn't pay attention up to date, and it was just, it was like musical chairs.
Yeah, Coach Fry, if you're watching right now, Kevin Fry, you are on the clock in the IDP Patreon Dynasty League. It just popped up. It just happened, so I thought I would let you know. I seriously doubt we get to me on that end, or I would pull it up and let you guys make my pick for me. But so in losing Aaron Jones, they come back and they sign Josh Jacobs. So it's like,
Well,
what are you doing over there? Like I mean, I don't know. Like Aaron Jones has been really, really good for them, especially when he's healthy. And then they're going to go get another guy that's been really good for the Raiders when he's healthy. It's like they just re-signed the same player to me. Then you did get AJ Dillon back, which is good for me because I have him in Dynasty. So like I was kind of stressing there because I thought he was going to get a lot of good run. And when they brought in Jacobs, they brought in another guy that gets hurt. The only difference is this guy plays when he gets hurt. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Wicked, do you have anything to add to the running back situation in Green Bay?
man, it just did not really make any sense to me.
Not at all.
You already had Aaron Jones. Why would you go sign Josh Jacobs? I don't view that as an upgrade of any sort. Jacobs has a ton of carries on his body. I mean, he's on the downward side of his career based on how much work he's gotten over the years. It just doesn't make any sense, especially when you've got Aaron Jones, who is a good running back, just as good, in my opinion, as Jacobs, who knows your system, who knows your team, who knows your offense, who's been in the building for a long time. Why, A, make that move when you already have that? And B, I got to imagine that there were some locker room whispers among the team, like, what are they doing to our guy? So I just don't see an upgrade there for the potential waves that they created.
And the only other thing I thought of was if there were also maybe some locker room whispers the other way beforehand, where it was just time, like sometimes it's just a guy wants out, or, he doesn't want to be that guy and be public about it, but he'll go to the team and say, hey,
Yeah, I guess that's certainly something that could have happened. I mean, we're not in the building, so we don't know. We all view it through the lens that the media shows us, which is Josh Jacobs was signed, and then like an hour later, Aaron Jones was released.
Right.
When in reality, it could have been a situation where Aaron Jones says, "Hey, man, I need to get out of here,"
right.
And they said, "Okay, let us go see if we can sign somebody, and if we can grab a guy, we'll put you on the street." That sort of situation certainly is plausible, but it seems like that's something we would have heard about.
Obviously, all speculation. We don't have Shepstradamus here like we usually do on about this time of year. Maybe he'll make an appearance in a couple of weeks when we start getting really deep into the NFL draft stuff. He tends to be pretty good. Shepstradamus can make some nice predictions with the NFL draft. But let's go from one running back. I wasn't going to talk about this one until later, but one running back core that didn't make a lot of sense to another running back move that didn't make a lot of sense in Tennessee, where they already have Tyjae Spears. And then, I mean, we already knew that we were going to lose Derrick Henry. We'll talk about him in a minute. They already knew they were going to lose Derrick Henry. They already have Tyjae Spears. And then they bring in a little bit older version of Tyjae Spears that, in my opinion, probably isn't even quite as good as Tyjae Spears. But they pay him enough that they're going to run him. They're going to start him. And Spears is still on his rookie contract. What are they thinking in Tennessee to get the exact same kind of running back? I think I started with David on the last one. I'll start with you, Wicked.
I was surprised. As a Dallas fan, I was actually really hoping that the Cowboys would re-sign him after seeing his contract. I understand why they didn't,
right.
But Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard are basically the Spider-Man meme of them pointing at each other. Like they're the same back. They have the same skill set. I think that Tyjae should have been paired with Derrick Henry, to be perfectly honest, or a Derrick Henry type of running back. Maybe like a Gus Edwards would have been a good signing, would have been cheaper and kind of complementary skill sets. I know that some people have concerns over Spears' knee, so maybe that factored in. And I think Tony Pollard is definitely a upgrade. Some people might not agree, but he is he came off that injury last year. He broke his leg in the playoffs in the 2022 season. And he had kind of an inefficient start to the 2023 season, but by the end of the year, he was running really good, kind of like he was during the regular season in 2022. So I think Tony Pollard's going to be a great back for Tennessee, and I think he's going to put up good numbers, and I think he's going to be efficient and all those things. He doesn't have a ton of miles on his body because he was behind Zeke his whole career. So he's still got a lot of juice in the tank, I think, but it just, from a schematic standpoint, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think he's going to be great, but he's ruining my Spears shares, and I don't like it.
Same.
David, anything to add to that?
Firstly, I love that you brought up the Spider-Man meme. My daughter's really mad at me about that. There's a Disney Uno game that we were playing, and if you get a certain card, you get to name a movie, and the person has to name 4 characters from a movie. She gave me Spider-Man. I said Spider-Man, 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 and Spider-Man. She was very mad.
It worked well.
As far as the Tony Pollard signing, the whole thing, I think it's good for them. He's a good player. I think he's recovered. He showed more efficiency at the end of the season, etc. I just think it all felt unnecessary. I felt like Tajay was already there. You could pick up a cheaper running back somewhere else to back up Tajay and build your roster somewhere else that you needed it. To me, it just felt unnecessary. It's a good move. He's a good player. Just a little.
They had Tony Pollard at home.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the big ones, the bigger ones, I should say. And I'm going to start with you, David, on this one, since Dina makes you watch those Bengals games from time to time. Joe Mixon leaves Cincinnati. He goes to Houston. Then Cincinnati gets back Zach Moss from Indianapolis. So now Mixon is the guy in Houston with Dameon Pierce behind him. Looks like Moss is going to potentially be the guy with a pretty talented rookie last year and Chase Brown coming up behind him. Do we see any real fantasy relevance there, or any shifts in fantasy relevance, I should say, with those two running back cores?
Yeah, go grab Chase Brown while you can. Listen, Zach Moss looked good in Indianapolis, but that's because you could stick me back there and I would have looked good. That offensive line went right back to what it had been before the horrible year. They had a bad year 1 year, but they were one of the most dominant when they had JT going. They were a dominant offensive line, and they got back to that last year. It wasn't all Zach Moss. A lot of it was that line. Yep. And unfortunately, as we all know, the Bengals don't have that offensive line. I don't think Zach Moss, they overpaid for him. They paid him like he's going to be the starter-ish. Like, they didn't pay him quite Tony Pollard type money, but he's the presumed starter there, and I just don't think he's going to perform. And Chase Brown's going to take over sooner rather than later. We already saw how electric he was last year. As far as, I don't know, I'm really mad that the Texans didn't go get Saquon Barkley. That's who I wanted over there. I thought it would have been a great fit for them. Better than Mixon, obviously. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. We'll wait and see.
I feel like Houston could have offered another $30 million, and Barkley would have been like, "Nah, I'm good." Like he's already going from the Giants. Like, let the man win a game from time to time. Hey, we got Jerry B in the house. He's rooting on his Wagner. I'm assuming that was one of the teams he pulled in the Patreon NCAA random drawing giveaway that we did last night. So you know what? I'm pulling for you too, man. I hope Wagner wins. Did we miss anything with Joe Mixon there, Wicked?
I think Mixon's going to be great for the Texans. He's used to running behind an offensive line that isn't very good and still produce. He's a reliable pass catcher, which will be good for a young quarterback to have a bailout option. And I Mixon's going to do what he's done his whole career. He's going to average, right around 4 yards a carry, give or take, 0.2 yards. And he's going to score 10 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns. He's going to be fine. From a fantasy perspective, you're probably looking at a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 for the next couple of seasons. They paid him, so that shows a level of confidence in him and that he's going to stick around. They didn't have to extend him after they traded for him, but they chose to do that anyway now. So that obviously shows that they've got some level of commitment there. And It's unfortunate for me because I really liked Pierce after his rookie year, and he did not do well last season. And I'm not sure why the big step back as the rest of the offense took a step forward. But I think that maybe they decided that Pierce was not going to be it, and they needed to pivot now while they have a young quarterback who is apparently supremely talented and that they want to kind of push their chips on while he's on a rookie deal. So I think Mixon was a great pickup. I think he's going to get a lot of work.
See, the one problem for me though with that is how long is he going to actually be available? Because I don't know if you follow any of the news because you're not from around here, but he was in the news like 3 times for waving his gun around. Now he went to the city with almost twice the crime of Cincinnati in Houston. He's the John Morant of the NFL.
I didn't say he was a good decision maker. I said he was a good running back.
But also it's Texas. Isn't that a requirement? Like, I'm not allowed to cross the state lines into Texas unless I'm
You got to show your gun before they let you in.
Right. All right. So I have to talk about Derrick Henry, obviously. That was a huge move there. We kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. And this is an unpopular opinion, guys. Personally, I think that Derrick Henry has lost some of his edge, quite a bit of his edge, actually. And looking at him play last season, I think there's a reason that we slowly saw Tajay get more and more carries. And he just kind of slowly, or at least he looked more impressive. But then also I heard a stat the other day. Now, I don't know if this is true. I heard this on another podcast, but it was something like 6 of the last 8 ACL injuries to knee injuries that happened to running backs in Baltimore happened on that Baltimore field. That could be coincidence. But a lot of people are talking about, or at least in that podcast, a lot of the locals around Baltimore were talking about how that field is not conducive for that type of random cuts and the type of play that a running back has to go through. Derrick Henry has a lot of miles on him. He's an older running back. I have a really bad feeling about this. So I made a bathroom board bet with somebody recently that Derrick Henry was not going to be a top 15 running back. It was you, David. I'm looking at the list now. It was you. I said he wasn't going to be a top 15 running back. Again, call it narrative, call it gut feeling, call it whatever you want, but this seems like a really bad combination for them to go into it. And Mitchell was good. Mitchell actually looked like he could potentially be a solid running back. Talking about Keaton Mitchell before his toes touched his nose going in the wrong direction. And not that they should ever be able to touch your nose, but his almost did. But he looked like a solid running back, and he's going to be the only guy really there to back up Derrick Henry at this point, unless I do something in the draft or who knows what. But just call me crazy. But David, you're the one that bet against me. So tell me why I'm wrong here.
Well, because he doesn't need to do all those cuts. This is Derrick Henry. He's lost some of his edge, but he plows through people. He don't go around them. He plows through people. He's a workhorse, much like Jonathan Taylor. That's who I felt Jonathan Taylor most was like coming into the league was Derrick Henry. I do agree that they don't know how to keep running backs healthy up there. And I think they have to do something either in the draft or pick up a third guy because I'm not sure Keaton Mitchell will be 100% ready by the season because if I remember correctly, he was hurt pretty late in the season. But I as a football fan, I can't wait to see it. I think it's a great fit for Derrick Henry. As a Steelers fan, I don't want to see it twice a year. But as long as we keep beating Lamar Jackson and we're his kryptonite, I don't really care what they throw at us because we just keep on pulling it out of our tush. So
fair enough. And you might be onto a good point there too, because Gus Edwards, just as Wicked said earlier, is more of that between the tackles guy for Baltimore, or has been in the past. I mean, and aside from this past season where he did miss a handful of games, he had played 16 games for the 2 previous seasons. So yeah, maybe it's just the cuts and everything, and maybe Keaton Mitchell is the guy I should be worried about. But did he miss anything there, Wicked, that you want to add to for Derrick Henry?
I don't love it, to be honest with you. I didn't like him going to Baltimore that much. Henry's the exact type of back that falls off a cliff real fast. His game doesn't have a ton of athleticism to it. He's a very downhill runner. He's got to be able to run through people to get anything. He needs some good blocking to get started for the most part, because he does not have the athleticism to make people miss in the backfield. As soon as he's taking the hand off, he's got to get some momentum going. I think we could. I think Henry started to fall off last year. I think we're going to continue to see it this year, and I think going into the 2025 season, that Derrick Henry signing is going to look bad.
All right. Well,
I have this gut feeling that it's that, but it's not that. I feel like this year he's going to look good. The first year, revitalized in a new place with a great offensive line. I think he's going to look good this year. And you don't know, they're starting to pile up weapons over there. You don't know who to stop. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers. I have them mocked to get at least one wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. And now you have Derrick Henry, not to mention Lamar Jackson, who I cannot stand. Only man I refuse to draft in fantasy, regardless of his value. I don't take him anywhere. But they're starting to become a team that you don't know who is going to get the ball, who to stop. I think this year he has like a revitalization, and everybody gets hyped for him, and then the following year he just plummets.
I will say, as a Colts fan, watching Derrick Henry's career sometimes a little too closely, whenever he seems to get a little mad or edgy about something, you get angry Derrick Henry, and he is not a guy you want to mess with. So if he's going there with that ill intent, with, hey, I'm going to show Tennessee how they wasted me, or I want to go here because I have to win now. It's time for me to win playoff games, or whatever his mindset is. If he goes into it angry, look out. Then I'm gonna know pretty early on that I lost that side bet. I'm gonna rattle off the rest of these real quick just to try to make up some extra time. We actually, you know what, we really should talk about DeAndre Swift to Chicago, because that one's important. So Wicked, I'll let you talk about DeAndre Swift to Chicago. But before that, let me rattle off the rest of these. We got Austin Eckler is going to Washington. Brian Robinson's gonna be backing him up. Devin Singletary lost his job in Houston, so now he's going to go suck in New York for the Giants with Eric Gray behind him. But without any real competition behind him, Singletary could be a value pick for you later in your fantasy drafts, except for the fact that by halftime they're going to be throwing the ball the rest of the game. Gus Edwards to the Chargers. I actually kind of like that one because of the new coaching staff. They love to run. So like Singletary, I kind of like Edwards late in your redraft as a late flyer. Let's see. We've got Antonio Gibson going to New England. Chase Edmonds is staying put to back up Rashid White again. And then Alexander Madison will probably be backing up Zamir White, if I had to guess, mostly just because Madison sucks. Wicked, you talk about DeAndre Swift, and then if there's any of those other running backs that I rattled off that you want to talk about, go ahead and knock yourself out, and then you can follow them up, David.
Yeah, so I really liked the Swift signing. I thought he had a really good season with Philly. It can be kind of hard to judge running backs sometimes because they're so O-line dependent. And Philadelphia's got a really, really good one. And so it always makes the running backs look a little bit better than they actually are. Look at, Miles Sanders after he went to Carolina and can't even keep a starting job over Chuba Hubbard. But I think Swift is incredibly talented. He's hugely athletic. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think that Chicago's offensive line is a little underrated. I think they're better than most people give them credit for, as long as they can keep relatively healthy. They struggled with some injuries last year that made their offensive line look worse than it actually is. I think that they've got more than good enough of an offensive line for Swift to get the holes that he needs to be productive. And just kind of overall, with everything that the Bears have been doing this offseason, I love the way that they've added to this offense, bringing in Keenan Allen. We got to assume at this point that they're taking Caleb Williams 1 overall. And I think that they're going, as long as Caleb is 75% of what he's hyped up to be, I think they're going to have a really good offense. And I think that Swift is going to be a big part of that, and he's going to get a lot of work.
I like it. David?
I'm convinced the Bears just hated Justin Fields. I mean, they went and got DJ Moore. We finally got him a receiver for a year. Then they ship him out. Now they got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. They got Cole Kmet. They brought in DeAndre Swift. I'm actually mocking for the Bears in the community mock, and I got them. Troy Franklin was available, and I think he's the better receiver, but I also feel like they already have that. So I went and got him Keon Coleman, just to pile on the Fields hate, I guess, given their new guy all these weapons. They also went and got a couple of guards over there to shore up the offensive line. So I think Swift's also in line for a decent season. The rest of these, nothing really pops off for me. Yeah.
I like it. So before we move on to the next, I'm gonna rattle off the tight ends real quick in just a moment. But before we get to that, we do have a second here for our sponsor, Rival. For those that aren't already aware, Rival Fantasy is the newest evolution in fantasy sports. Rival's all-in-one fantasy platform has changed the fantasy sports landscape. From fantasy bingo, where you mark off boxes of achievements that your players accomplish on the field, to season-long and best ball leagues, to mock drafts and challenges, and more. They have the perfect user-friendly website and app for you. So send a challenge to your friend or send a challenge to your rival and tell them to put their money where their mouth is. But your first deposit of up to $200 will be matched, plus an additional $25 just for using that link, joinrival.com/titletribe. That's joinrival.com/titletribe. All right, so the tight ends real quick. Irv Smith goes to Kansas City. I think he all he does there is kind of piss me off because I have Gray in my dynasty leagues just waiting on Kelsey to retire. And here we are facing it finally in the next year or two. And now we have Irv Smith there just to kind of muddy the waters. I still think it's going to be Gray there. Gerald Everett goes to Chicago. He's going to be splitting with Kmet. I think Kmet is the more athletic and the better tight end to have there. But I think Everett is involved just enough that you probably aren't going to want either of your fantasy teams. And that's coming from a guy who has been on Kmet and loves Kmet. Okay, I'm just that worried about Everett. Zach Ertz goes to Washington. He's going to be the starter there by default. They have nothing else. They've got John Bates, who plays okay from time to time. Dalton Schultz re-signs with Houston. Jonnu Smith is the only big one here I think could make a big difference. But with all those other weapons there, who knows how they're going to actually utilize Smith. But if those wide receivers are able to open up the middle of the field, you might see a lot of big games from Jonnu Smith. Those are the big ones I had on the dock for today. Do you guys want to talk about any of those 5 tight ends and how it might relate to the fantasy football this season?
I'm actually staying mum on tight ends. My favorite isn't on that list, and I'm going to try to keep it that way. I've talked about him on 2 shows, and now I realize my mistake, as in a few of my leagues. People have snatched him up, trying to keep him a secret, so I'm going to not talk about tight ends.
All right, well, I am in a league that you're not in, so shoot me a DM because I'm drafting here pretty soon. He's in that league. He's in that league, so don't send it to him. All right, so what do you got, Wicked?
I mean, the only one of that list that I really care about is Dalton Schultz. I'm happy to see him go back with Houston. Yeah. He's got a good quarterback. Schultz has developed well over the years, starting in Dallas, and then he had a pretty decent season last year. I think he continues to build on that and be a reliable target. Stroud spreads the ball around pretty well, so I'm not worried about the fact that they've got other weapons on that team and that they're probably going to continue to add to it. I think Schultz is going to be somebody that Stroud relies on pretty frequently as he continues to develop himself as a quarterback. A tight end that can get open is a valuable weapon, and Schultz can do that for him.
I like it. All right, now with the wide receivers, we do have the Deontay Johnson trade to Carolina. That is a guy that Wicked wanted to talk about. I'm trying to save some time here. So what we're going to do, because I do this from time to time for most of our episodes, actually, Wicked will be dropping a little bit of a tidbit of information in the Gilded chat to the Patreon-only chat. Okay, so he's going to be chatting with the Patreon onlys about his views on the Deontay Johnson trade to Carolina, and how he thinks that might affect the fantasy horizon there in Carolina. So if you want to hear that kind of news, almost every single week we do this. We always leave a little bit extra just for our Patreons. Wicked's going to be that man for Deontay Johnson, and let's see. I'm going to say, David, you have Calvin Ridley. So if you want to drop some information about Calvin Ridley and how his move to Tennessee affects the fantasy platform there, or the fantasy horizon there, that would be greatly appreciated. You guys type those into the Patreon only chats after the show. For this show, though, to wrap up this show, I want to talk about any of the other wide receivers that are on this list. The big ones that I see on here personally, I think Marquise Brown has a real opportunity to do something there with Kansas City. They've been looking for that guy to replace Hill since he left. I think they have that guy with Rice, but now they have potentially another weapon. If you have to use two guys to replace Hill, then you use two guys to replace Hill. And I think that might be a lot of what we have here. If Marquise Brown can stay healthy with his speed and Rashee Rice on the other side, I think they've done it. I think that they have successfully replaced Tyreek Hill, because now it's just another option. And Mahomes is good enough to find those options, and he can create time for himself to find those options. So how far off am I about Marquise Brown here, guys?
I like Marquise Brown. I liked him when he was on Baltimore. I liked him when he was in Arizona. I still like him now that he's in Kansas City. I think he's going to be a good, reliable target for Mahomes. I mean, he's going to have a great quarterback attached to him, so how can you not like it? The biggest issue that we had with KC pass catchers last year was that they couldn't hold on to the damn ball.
Yeah.
And Brown can run routes. He can get open deep, and Mahomes has the arm to hit him. Like you said, I think that they're learning now that they can't replace Hill with one guy. And I do think that between Hollywood and Rice, that they have a similar skill set to what Tyreek Hill had, because Rice is very good in the short to intermediate area. He can break tackles. He's good after the catch, whereas Brown is the speed guy that can get deep and beat you over the top. It's hard to find somebody that can do both, but if you've got a couple of guys that can do one job or the other, then you're set. And I think that Brown's going to get a lot of good looks. There might be, for fantasy, he might have a bit of a roller coaster season. There might be some games where, he doesn't put up a lot of points, but he's going to be the guy that week 5 out of nowhere, he drops 45 points on you because he catches 2 deep bombs. So and he's not expensive. Even now that he's attached to Mahomes, you can still go trade for him pretty cheap, because of his name.
Yep. Yeah, and the injury concerns. Yeah. So, and my son read me the notification the other day when Marquise Brown went there, and I was like, Marquise Brown is Kadarius Toney if Kadarius Toney was a good football player.
Yeah, if he could catch the ball.
All right, so I want to talk, David, I want you to talk a little bit about the Keenan Allen trade, because we do have our man Pete in the chat. Keenan Allen got traded to Chicago. You now have DJ Moore. I'm assuming will still be the one there. Now you got the aging but still talented Keenan Allen. Nothing really there behind them in the way of wide receivers. So just like you said in the community mock, you drafted another running back for them to give them that third guy. So how successful do you think Allen could potentially be if they get a guy like Caleb Williams to come in and be that QB1?
I think Keenan Allen's going to be great. I'm more worried, and I said this the other night on Sunday on the round table, I'm more worried about Herbert. I was shocked that they got rid of his, I call him Herbert's safety blankie. I don't know if you watched him, but darn near 50% of his passes, whether they were caught or not, went to Keenan Allen. He loved Keenan Allen, and I think that's exactly what Caleb Williams is going to have now. He has somebody who catches the ball consistently, who gets open consistently. And then he has DJ Moore to take the top off of it too. I think they'll get Keon Coleman or somebody like that, just to have a third guy. They have Cole Kmet, who was showing even with Justin Fields that he could be solid. I think Caleb Williams is about to have himself a nice little set of weapons over there.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, go ahead and Google Keenan Allen's third shoulder. If you Google Keenan Allen's third shoulder, you'll see why he was such a safety blanket for Justin Herbert. Because if you have a guy with extra body parts, you want to take advantage of that. So, obviously a little bit of a joke there, but it is kind of creepy. I just only recently found that out a couple years ago, so I bring it up a lot, probably more than I should. But let's see, Jerry Jeudy, my guy, Jerry Jeudy. So Wicked and I have a little bit of a side bet going between Jeudy and T. Higgins. Higgins stays in Cincinnati. Higgins is still going to continue to be the backup to Chase. Jeudy goes to Cleveland to be the backup to Amari Cooper, and I don't want to call them backups because both of them are going to see a lot of playing time. They're the number two, as we all know. In most sets in the NFL, you usually play at least two wide receivers anyway, so most of the time these two are still going to be on the field together, or not together, obviously it's separate teams, but you get what I'm saying. But for me, I like Jerry Jeudy. I really like this situation for him. The problem for me, yeah, if you're going to get paid, they're going to use you. But obviously, Cooper's there. They're not going to use you more than Cooper. But the problem for me is that he went to Cleveland. And you guys know how much I hate Cleveland. I despise Cleveland. It's a shit organization. And I absolutely despise them for signing the human predator to that huge contract when they did. And now I'm never going to actually get to see Jerry Jeudy play because I refuse to watch a Browns game. Watch it live anyway. I'll still watch the game film because it doesn't count towards their numbers. So anyhow, Jerry Jeudy, to me, I think he's going to have a huge season. I think he takes that leap forward. A lot of other people have been calling for that leap forward in the past. I've never seen the situation where it could be a leap forward for him. I like the situation now. I look for him to be a mid to high end wide receiver 3 at the bare minimum almost every single week. And due to consistency, he'll be a low end wide receiver 2 by the end of the season. Again, T. Higgins stays in Cincinnati. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about T. Higgins, Wicked. And then after that, David, if you could be ready to talk about the today's deal where Mike Williams went to the Jets.
Yeah, so T. Higgins, I'm actually a little disappointed that he got franchise tagged. I think that he could go be a wide receiver 1 on probably half the teams in the league. Not saying he's a Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb level wide receiver 1, but he could be a Nico Collins level wide receiver 1, or maybe even a little bit better than that. From a fantasy perspective, I don't think it really matters that much because he's either getting the better looks in the Cincinnati offense with the better quarterback, or he's getting more volume and more opportunity share on a team that's got less weapons. And I think those kind of balance each other out as far as, what he's going to actually score. The big thing for Higgins is health to both him and his quarterback, because it's been really tough for both of him and Joe Burrow to stay healthy together for a full season. So I think if that can happen, if Burrow and Higgins can both stay healthy, not only will the Cincinnati Bengals offense be a lot more efficient than it was last season, but I could certainly see Higgins being a high-end wide receiver 2 on the year.
You know what? I can feel that. Like I do agree that when they're both there together, they're obviously both better. But before we get on to Mike Williams, David, you have to take on this hard-hitting question here because I know that you are a Swiftie at heart. So I need you to explain to me what the impact of Taylor Swift is on the NFL moving forward. And she had a really good rookie season. She really shook things off in Arrowhead Stadium several times and other stadiums, right? So she travels well. Her fans travel well. So anytime she's there, it's like a home game, even if it's an away game. I don't know. What do you think about season 2 of Taylor Swift?
All I gotta say is it's the first time that my 13 and 9-year-old have both decided that they wanted to watch football this year. And yes, they are both teenage or a teenage and a 9-year-old girl. So, but they love Taylor Swift, and that's the only reason they watched. The twins who are going to be here in 8 days, I plan on sitting them down from a very young age and getting them to understand football because these two, I missed that window. But
yeah.
I think it's a good thing for the numbers, obviously. Might be why the salary cap went up. It could be all entirely related to Taylor Swift. I hate it a little bit because I think it distracts from the game itself. But I don't hate the attention it brings to it. It brings new people, and that's what we need. We need more people, for us, for what we do, our analysis. We need more people to care about it. Now, I'm not saying all the people who watch because of Taylor Swift are going to be suddenly, hey, I need to see what fantasy football is about. But it brings more attention, so it can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, some of them will, I mean,
yeah.
Some of them will, absolutely. And
football's entertainment, man. So if Taylor Swift brings more people into that network, then by all means.
Yeah, I was really hoping that DeAndre Swift would go to Kansas City, though, just to make that connection.
Swift on Swift.
Yeah, and then Pete, love you, buddy. Thanks a lot. He keeps doing it. He just keeps dropping it. I appreciate you, Pete. Have a great one. And it looks like you might have a little bit of a fan here. We might have a regular viewer here. So
here we go. Come see me.
If you want to ask Wicked questions, you can get in our group chat, our gilded chat. It is free to get in there. You can hit me at Twitter at JustinFF_. I'll get you that invitation, and you can ask Wicked anything. All right, Mike Williams to the Jets. Let's get back to. We need to wrap this thing up. We're over an hour now. So you talk about Mike Williams to the Jets because that one intrigued me today. And then after that, I'm just going to rattle off the rest of the wide receivers, and you guys can talk about them if you need to.
All right. I think that it is a fantastic move for the Jets for the 6 games that he's going to be available. No, I honestly think I attribute injuries a lot to teams, training staffs, that kind of thing. If it's a consistent thing, and if you don't follow football, you might not notice this, but the Chargers are beat up every single year. It's not just Mike Williams. There's tons of people. They have some of the highest missed games due to injury of any of the teams in the NFL. So we're going to see if it's Mike Williams is fragile or if it's they just don't know how to train him up right, keep him on the field. If he could stay on the field, it's a great move for the Jets. They have another weapon now because they had nothing really except for Aaron Rodgers' old buddies beyond his name's escaping me. Garrett Wilson. So, it gives them another weapon who can take the top off of a defense. So I like the move if he could stay healthy.
Yeah, and if Rodgers is even 80% of what Rodgers used to be. So that's to be determined. After that, Mike, we have 2 more Mikes. We got Mike Evans and Michael Pittman both re-signed with their respective teams, the Bucs and the Colts. Then Curtis Samuel is now a Bill. And he'll on the depth chart right now, he's still kind of looking like he might be under Khalil Shakir and obviously Diggs. And then Gabe Davis, and that's because Gabe Davis left from the Bills to go to Jacksonville, and he'll be the number 2 behind Christian Kirk there, most likely. I do really like Zay Jones. I think that there's still an opportunity for Zay Jones to earn that 2 spot. But a lot of people like Gabe Davis too, and he is talented. I think that'll be a fun one to watch in camp. But do you guys want to talk about any of those guys at all?
I really like Curtis Samuel to Buffalo. I think Curtis Samuel is a very good player. He's going to probably be the wide receiver 3, which I think is perfect for his skill set. And he's got an elite quarterback. We've seen Diggs really fall off the second half of the year, 2 seasons in a row, which is going to open up opportunity for other guys on the team. And I think Curtis Samuel is the guy that could benefit from it.
So one of those few times where that wide receiver 3 could actually be fantasy.
Well, I mean, with how much they throw the ball, I think that there's going to be enough to go around.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. All right. Well, fellas, unless you have anything else, I do want to one thing I don't think you talked about enough earlier, David. I want you to mention your card breaks. When do you do those? How can they find you? Let's get some more eyes on the card breaks. And I know people are watching because, like I said, they reach out to me to get a hold of you.
So I do them whenever they close. I fill them on Facebook, Genesis Fantasy Breaks. You can just go on there, look that up, and ask to join the group. Right now we have up a absolute, which obviously, if anybody doesn't know, the kabooms in these go for stupid sums of money. But once we fill them, we run them, and we stream it to YouTube now via you guys, since we kind of joined together and partnered up, and it's a great time. I started doing it during COVID.
All right, excellent. So at Wicked underscore Dynasty, is there anything that you have for the people, Wicked, on your way out the door?
Nope. I think that pretty much covers it. Free agency is important to watch, especially if you're playing fantasy football. A lot of these moves will have dramatic impact on player values, and what I always tell people is be cautious to panic sell or panic buy based on the immediate swing of value that's going to happen when these deals get done, because you'll see that this value course corrects after a few weeks and the hype dies down. And so you don't want to end up making a bad deal based on a temporary value situation.
Excellent. Love it. All right. Hey, guys, I think I just heard somebody downstairs. I think Coach might be home. So for Wicked, for David, this is Justin. We love you guys. Thanks a lot. Peace out.